Hello, and welcome back to Mr. B Teaches History. Today's lecture will focus on the economic elements of the settlement of the western frontier of the United States. So let's get started. Between the Mississippi River and the Rocky Mountains is today called the Great Plains, but in the mid-1800s this was called the Great American Desert because it had few trees and less than 15 inches of rain a year. The winter blizzards and hot summers discouraged American settlement, along with Native American Indian tribes that roamed the region for massive buffalo herds. After the Civil War, it starts to be developed due to the near destruction of the buffalo, and the Native American tribes were then moved to reservations. The construction of the railroad also created many modern towns within the region. Lastly, fenced-in homesteads and ranches encouraged the development of private instead of common property in the region. Multiple gold and silver strikes in the West spurred both Western migration and statehood for Western territories. They often followed the same pattern as the 1849 California gold rush, where individuals would pan for gold, followed by wealthy investors and companies building deep shaft mines that created booms and ghost towns based on the quantity of resources found in that region. These gold and silver rushes created a crisis over the value of money in the United States during the late 1800s. It also left visible scars on the landscape. Lastly, Native American Indian tribes often lost their land and even reservation land to miners who wanted gold or silver if it was found on their lands. Mexican cowboys were the first to see the potential for using the Great Plains for raising cattle. This led to big businesses to get into cattle because cows were cheap and the grass was free. Railroads also opened up markets in the east and west for cattle products. These cattle were driven to large cities on the plains to meet these railroads and move them east to be processed. The great cattle drives ended in the 1880s as overgrazing and a blizzard killed over 90% of the cattle. Also, settlers started using barbed wire to cut off access to the open range. Lastly, wealthy cattle owners used science and their huge ranches to raise cattle instead of just letting them roam free. The Homestead Act of 1862 encouraged the first farmers to work on the plains by promising them 160 acres of land per family that settled on the land for 5 years. The best lands, though, had to be purchased because they were owned by the railroads as payment for their building. The plains were not the best place for farming, though, because of the dry and severe weather, falling prices, and the cost of machinery. Over 2/3 of the farmers failed because 160 acres was not enough to make a living. To make it work on the plains, farmers used drought-resistant crops and plowed deep to use available moisture in the ground. Dams and irrigation from underground reservoirs provided the water for most farms. Paintings and photographs of the American West and the deforestation of the eastern United States sparked a movement of conserving the natural environment and protecting the western lands from environmental exploitation. 2 acts of Congress regulated the use of federal forests and their development until the creation of the National Park System under Teddy Roosevelt in the early 1900s. There were 2 schools of thought when it came to protecting the environment. First was to apply scientific management ideas and regulate the use of natural resources and they were called conservationists. The other side, called preservationists, wanted to preserve natural areas free from human interference. The last major lands for Western settlement opened in 1889 in Oklahoma. Several years later, Franklin Turner presented a thesis about America's frontier experience. He theorized that 300 years of frontier experience promoted independence and individualism in the United States, which broke down the class distinctions and fostered social change and democracy. The continued expansion to the frontier caused Americans to be inventive, practical-minded, but wasteful in resources. The frontier in the United States promised to anyone a fresh start and questioned whether fresh starts were possible once the frontier was closed.
If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or clarifications you would like to make about this lecture, please leave a comment below. If you learned something new, please consider leaving a like. If you would like to receive notifications of more content like this, please consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell. If you would like to support this channel and creator financially, please check out the links in the description for merchandise or sites that will provide me direct financial support for the work of this channel. Thank you for your time and have a great day. Class dismissed.